Let's start. Let's take our seat and start, honored members. Good morning, co-chair. Good morning, Minister. Good morning, honorable members, and good morning, Chair of the Reserve Force Council and the officials, and good morning, the acting Chair of the Reserve Force, and good morning, staff. We officially open this meeting, and we welcome you all. The Chair of the Reserve Force Council, colleagues, members of the Reserve Force, the Minister, the Reserve Force Council, as provided for in the legislation, is a consultative and advisory body representing the interest of the Reserve Force, with a mandate to advise the Minister on matters affecting the Reserve. Its role is therefore both important and strategic. It is serving as a bridge between policy, the lived realities of the reservist, and the future direction of the reserve component. Minister and Chair, the Reserve Force remains a critical component of the South African National Defence Force. In any modern military, the Reserve provides the essential surge capacity and ability to expand force levels in times of crisis, contingencies, or heightened operational demands. This is not a peripheral function, it is central to the credibility and flexibility of the Defence Force. However, it must be acknowledged that the reserve component has faced significant challenges over many years. It is characterized by a rapidly aging profile, limited rejuvenation efforts, and what appears to be an insufficiently defined strategic positioning within the broader force design of the South African National Defence Force. In its current state, it is not optimally configured to provide the level of such capability that our defense posture requires. Against this backdrop, we are particularly encouraged that the Reserve Force Council is once again fully constituted, Minister. The absence of the Reserve Force for several years created a gap in advisory capacity at precisely the time when renewed thinking about the Reserve Force was most needed. We therefore welcome the establishment of the new council and look forward to its contribution in shaping the credible and forward-looking path for the Reserve Force. At the same time, Minister and the Chair, the committee knows with concern the long-standing vacancies, the vacancy in the position of Chief of Reserve Force. This is a critical leadership role, and its continued vacancy inevitably affects the coherence, direction, and advocacy for the reserve component. It's a matter that requires urgent attention if the Reserve Force is to be repositioned effectively. Finally, Chair, Minister, and honorable members, as we engage with the Council today, it is important to underscore a foundational principle, the importance of maintaining a professional military, while there may be involving ideas about the role of the reserves, including potential contribution to the broader societal objectives. This must be carefully balanced with the core requirement of military professionalism, discipline, and readiness. The strength of any defense force ultimately rests on its ability to fulfill its primary mandate effectively. We as the committee and honorable members, we are looking forward, Minister, to a constructive engagement with the Council to better understand its vision, its priorities, and how it intends to contribute to strengthening the reserve force as a credible and a capable component of our national defense force. With these few words, we welcome you, Minister, and we are happy that you managed to be here, having taken a flight from Gauteng this morning up to here. We are happy, Minister, to be with you here. Thank you very much. Let's start with our program. We've got a program in front of us. The next item will be the apologies, and we will hand over to our secretary to give apologies.
Good morning, Chair. Good morning, everyone here present. There are apologies from Mr. Niehaus, Mr. Ebekulu, Deputy Minister Mkungo, Deputy Minister Holomisa, and a request for an early release by Mr. Hala. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you. Let's adopt the agenda. Then from there we'll introduce ourselves. Can we have them? Can we move for the adoption of the agenda, honourable members? Honourable Briet.
Chairperson, I'll move for the adoption of the agenda and of the apologies.
Thank you, Honourable Briet. Honourable, can you second the adoption of the agenda? Honourable Hala.
I second, Chair.
Thank you. Let's before we start, let's introduce ourselves, members. Minister, the chair of the council, and the senior leadership. I am Piran Pala, the co-chair of this committee. I will give members a platform to introduce themselves. Co-chair.
Thank you, Minister, Chair, and honorable members. I'm Dr. Kigaba, co-chair of the committee. Thank you.
Doc, let's start with you, Honorable.
Thank you, Chair. Good morning, Minister and the entourage. My name is Pitso Noe. I serve in the Joint Standing Committee on Defense. Thank you. Good morning, Chair. My name is Pumlani Kubugeli. I also serve on the Joint Standing Committee on Defense.
Thank you.
Well, the way you say acting or acting, but I understand. Morning, Chair. Good morning, everybody, Minister. My name is Chris Harting, member of this committee.
Good morning, Chair Michael, member of this committee.
Thank you.
Good morning, Chairperson, and good morning, Minister and honorable members. My name is Thokozile Sokanyile, a member of the Joint Standing Committee. Thank you.
Good morning, everyone. Minister, all protocol observed. My name is Tammy Briet. I'm also a member of this committee.
Thank you, Chair. Firstly, I want to apologize on your behalf that you have already addressed us and you want us to introduce ourselves. My name is Umaliake Wakashelempe. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Chair. Good morning, everyone. My name is Windy. The same name is Plakis.
Thank you. Honourable Minister and Honourable officials, we have our support staff. I'll start with our coordinating advisor.
Good morning, members and Minister and delegates. Dr. Willem Jansen van Rensburg. I'm the advisor to the committee.
Thank you. Good morning, co-chairs, Minister, everyone in the platform. My name is Nandi Pamakekwana, Committee Secretary. Thank you.
Thank you, Honorable Ray.
Good morning, co-chairs. Good morning, Minister. Raymond Stenkamp Fonseca, Committee Researcher.
Thank you. Minister and officials, I missed one honorable member, Honorable Gotzel. Sorry, Honorable Gotzel.
No problem. Thank you, Chair. Nicholas Gotzel, member of the committee.
Thank you very much. No.
Morning, co-chairs. Morning, everybody in the meeting. My name is Olivando, Committee Assistant for the committee.
And thank you. Yeah, these are members of the committee who are working together as a team, Minister. Let's hand over to you. But before that, Minister, I want, on behalf of this committee, to convey our heartfelt condolences to the Deputy Minister Mkungo and his entire family on the bereavement. We wish his sister a peaceful rest and his family comfort during this difficult moment. Let me hand over to you, Minister. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Chair and the co-chairs, and also to members of the committee. We'll quickly run through the team just to introduce themselves. So, again, my name is Angie Muteja, the Minister for Defense and Military Veterans. Then I'll ask the Chair and his team to introduce themselves. Thank you, Chair.
Morning, Chair. Thank you for this opportunity. I will take my prerogative to introduce myself and the rest of them. I'm the Councillor Yekelo, the Chair of the Reserve Force Council. Next to me is Councillor Kevin Richards, a retired member of the Air Force and an HR functionary. On his left is Councillor Mimi Chabalala, who's the Deputy Chairperson. She is a member of the first MSDS intake. That is 2003. I'm not sure whether she's part of those who are referred to as 2000 or what. But she is also a graduate of the Faculty of Military Science of the University of Stellenbosch. She's a former Army Engineer Staff Officer. And next to her, is Councillor Mulalo, probably the last born in the council, because the minister said it in some words, and we thought she's trying to stress the question of an age. What is it, a generational mix? And so finally he's a member of the council, but he was not picked up from the street. He is a member of a program that Defense had in the mid and late 2000s, which is called the University Reserve Training Program, and he's an engineer by profession. That program was discontinued. Hopefully at some stage, when it's appropriate, we will explain to the minister why it should be instituted. On the other side is Councillor Ace van der Weeshuizen. He is a long-standing member of the council. He's a farmer from the Western Cape. He's not only an retired army officer, but he's also active in the national setup of national rural safety circles and disaster management. Let me take also the privilege to mention our counterpart from the serving members, Admiral Hendricks Morake, who's the acting Chief Defense Reserves. I'm not sure whether Captain Mabunda, who's your man, is here, but he is the liaison officer. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Chair. And I think our program will go as follows. We'll have the engagement with the Reserve Force. And from there, we'll have the last part, which will be the internal, and we will release you, Minister, after engaging with the Reserve Force, the Reserve Council. So let's go straight, Minister. Let's go straight to the presentation, the engagement with the Reserve Force Council on the development of the Reserve Force and its perceived future roles. So I'll hand over to you, Minister.
No, thank you very much, Chair, and thank you very much for the opportunity to come and present to yourselves. And I fully agree with you. It's one of the most important councils or structures within the Defence Force. And I was very heartened when I appointed the committee on the 28th of May last year. Then by July, it was reconstituted. We had an induction. And I think, as you will see from the profile of committee members, we really have the best of South Africans in that committee. And that's why I agree with you to say, indeed, it's a very important committee with very, as I say, serious South Africans that are determined and committed to the country and the Defence Force. So as you will see, so say the full profile, it's extremely impressive. We had a few engagements. As you correctly say, there had been challenges, but we're really working on getting it back because we appreciate its importance. I've had some interactions with the chair, but I think at some stage we'll share what is it that we are trying to put in the cookie to make sure that indeed we can get more people, young and retired officials, into the Reserve Force, but what programs and other programs that we're trying to look at with the chairperson, which are programs that unfortunately we don't have direct resources from our own kitty, but are also working with other departments like higher education to assist us to get the necessary resources to do some of the work that the council has identified. So I don't want to take the time so that I remove the excitement of really getting a report from them, but I'm very grateful and appreciative that we have this opportunity to present to yourselves, get counsel, advice, but also get support for some of the work that we do in the committee. So I'll hand over to the Chair, and thank you very much, Chair, for the opportunity.
Thank you, Minister. The Chair, let's proceed.
Thank you, Chair, and co-chairs and members. Thank you, Minister, for the opportunity. The presentation will be in three parts, three presenters, myself, the Deputy Chair, Councillor Chabalala, and Councillor Richards. But Chair, let me start first of all to extend an apology for the sort of mishap in the submission to the Council. The mishap only is related to the PowerPoint presentation, not to the executive summary. The reason that this happened is that on reviewing the PowerPoint presentation, that is the first submission, I realized that slides 2, 3, 4, 5, and 6 basically refer or cover the area we had covered when earlier last year we had an information brief with you, with this committee, which was on visual platform. And so I wanted to avoid the tautology. But from that earlier version, we retain slide 1, 7, and 8. What we substituted those slides with, in my view, is much more important than what was retained, was covered in those slides. What we now introduced, which we will talk to later, was to introduce the constitutional and strategic direction and guidance policy on the whole question of defense, not just reserves, but the defense portfolio with regards to both the regulars and the reserves. So I really want to extend a sincere apology, but I'm comforted by the fact that I was told that all of you here are people of faith who are supposed to be forgiving and loving. Let me then say, we believe that the most realistic way forward for the generation and development of reserves is only realizable when we work within the framework we are going to suggest. It's a draft framework, it's a strategic concept, it's not a strategy. It's still a concept. And the chair's opening remarks basically serve to reinforce what we are going to say here today. So if, Chair, you are satisfied with my expression of an apology, I will then await your go-ahead to ask Deputy Chairperson Mimi Chabalala to kickstart our presentation.
Let's proceed there, Chair.
Honorable Chairperson and the members of the committee, as indicated, I am the Deputy Chairperson. In front of you is the question or the engagement that we received from this honorable office. Upon reflecting on this as the council, we took it to account that this committee would like to talk with the Reserve Force Council, not to the Reserve Force Council. There is a great difference in that. And we really take this opportunity very seriously, because it's only in the collaboration that we will be able to come up with feasible and workable plans. We also in that, when you look at the topic, it says development of the reserve force and its perceived future roles. That is a future tense. And with that, we reflect on the past, we look at the present, but most importantly, we look at the future. How can we move forward to move this reserve force capability for South Africa? In front of you, sir, is the slide that we call it the positioning of the Reserve Force Council. Where do we locate the Reserve Force Council? We are, as per your introduction, Chairperson, we are a consultative body that is concerned with civil-military relation matters, not on operational matters. We do not have a force number in the Reserve Force Council. But what is important is, unlike the previous councils, we locate ourselves in the thematic space where we are directed by the Minister of Defense and Military Veterans to understand the importance of what she perceives the Reserve Force system and capability for employment should be. I would like also to express that we take account of the military leadership where we fit in. You will see on the slide there's a big solid black line that shows how far the Reserve Force Council can go. In that, we interface with the Chief Defence Reserves, who is under command of the Chief of the South African National Defence Force. And in all that we do, we seek to inform, to advocate for the Reserve Force agenda. And we also introduce and consult on topics that influence the Reserve Force capability as it stands. As I indicated, we also seek to engage with the governance and the compliance structures, which is the Secretary for Defense, and those forums that are under command of the Chief of the South African National Defence Force. We also indicate that we want to integrate, or we have integrated with the defense and the governance structures within the entire ecosystem of the government. With that said, sir, we confirm that this Reserve Force Council will not engage with structures that are under command. We have taken the opportunity to do our stakeholder analysis, and we also understand that for an effective defense, it does not happen in a vacuum. You need those stakeholders that we have a common goal so that we can forge forward. So I want to draw your attention to column D, which is the outcome of what we anticipate with the different entities that we will be engaging with. We'll start at the serial number 5, which is the academic and the think tanks at the bottom of the table. And with them, we seek to engage and also make sure that we are in line with the global trends and matters that influence the reserve force system. Second to that, it is South African National Defence Force. In order for us to consult and reach consensus, we understand that they are an important stakeholder for us, and we want to reach consensus on matters before we move or we advise the minister on things that are in line with the reserve force agenda. And lastly, I would like to speak on the parliament and the committees within the government. In order to advance the agenda of the reserve force, we seek authority from them to be able to speak on behalf of the reserve force members. We also understand that for us to optimize the Reserve Force Council, the plague of our youth, the increased community stability, to increase community stability and to ensure that South Africa doesn't just endure, it thrives. We need a capable reserve force system. With that said, I would like to hand over the baton to our chairperson, General Yekelo. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Olala. Chair.
Thank you, Chair. Chair, the few slides that I'm going to talk to, and I will be brief, because basically this is your area. And but I wanted that to make sure and to reassure you that we are not improvising, that what we are proposing and working on is based on a constitutional framework and policy. I mentioned there Chapter 11 on the security services, and it talks to what national security is. Sometimes we make the mistake of talking about defense only as a standalone. No country can have a viable, a capable defense without that defense being organized within a broader national security framework. The Constitution therefore says that the national security must reflect the resolve of all South Africans and their will to live in peace and harmony, to be free from fear and want, and to seek a better life. But then it also says that national security is subject to this Parliament and the national executive. The Constitution further goes on in Section 199 to say that the Section 199(4) says the security service may be established only in terms of national legislation, not otherwise. That the Parliament and administration enacted the provisions of Section 99 through the promulgation of the 1996 White Paper on Defense. Chair and the Minister, that white paper is this year 30 years old, but a lot of its provisions have not yet been realized. And this is what we want to draw to the attention of this Parliament, of this committee, as we go forward. Chapter 5 states the following in Clause 8, that a core defense capability includes a balanced and sustainable nucleus with the following features, and this is very important. It was correct then in 1996. It is the correct thing to do even now. The features being the ability to deal with all range of contingencies, which the Chair has mentioned, the ability to expand the size of the Defence Force to appropriate levels within a realistic warning period should the threat deteriorate significantly. You can't meet that provision if you don't have a capable reserve force. Clause 9, it says this core force, almost same thing as the new trust approach, takes account of government spending priorities and the fact that the self-defense problem is likely to be limited in the short to medium term. Let me just make the following comment about taking account of government defense spending. The relative peace that we were very conscious that the relative peace, in spite of sporadic lawlessness, violence in various places in the country, but the relative peace we have is not because we have the armed forces, the SANDF, or because we have the police, or we have what is called the State Security Agency. It is precisely because the government has those spending priorities, which includes spending on social policies. This does not require a large standing force. Instead, the SANDF will comprise of a relatively small regular force and a sufficiently large part-time force. I recall last year the minister was quoted in the media as having provided you with this committee with statistics. Minister will correct me. That's right. Where the honorable minister mentioned that the average age of our reserves, and which the chair has just mentioned, are about plus 49 years. And the average age of the regulars is about is plus 39. Let me say in terms of what that last bullet says, the following. The tables have been turned around. We have got a larger regular force and an almost very small reserve force component, which is on its last legs because of the age factor. Let me proceed to chapter 6. Clause 9 then says the following. For political, strategic, and economic reasons, the SANDF will be an all-volunteer force. This applies to both the regular force and the part-time force, which is basically the reserves. Chapter 6 then says, a basic structure of this nature is extremely cost-effective and allows for flexibility in force levels, according to the internal and external security environment. Honorable members, reserve force members are not career soldiers. They are what are called citizen soldiers. Next slide. This is also important for you to note. Now, as a result of the shift from a conscript to a volunteer force, the DoD will have to design appropriate strategies to attract a high quality of recruits, secure the required turnover, and develop functional and technical skills. This is very important going forward. Next slide. I want to close by just quoting from an international perspective. The question of reserve, of generation and development of reserve is widely applied internationally. Reserve forces are generally defined as part-time military volunteers, ex or former regular force personnel who dedicate their spare time to training and are available to supplement, augment, or reinforce regular armed forces during operational demands, national emergencies such as floods, such as COVID, or times of crisis. They are known as citizen soldiers, and they enable countries to maintain a robust defense posture without the constant expense of a fully professional standing army. Honorable members, let me move towards the conclusion of the part I'm supposed to present by quoting from the recently published National Security Strategy. I must pay tribute to the office that produced that strategy because they've also produced a public version. A national security strategy that is secret, that is known only by the cabinet and few people, will not have an impact on the country. That the public, intellectuals, public commentators will be able to comment on this strategy is very important, and we can then enrich our national strategy going forward. Three objectives we have picked up from that national security strategy is one, to ensure that South Africans are safe, that is in the territorial and well-being sense, free, sovereign and democratic and prosperous, wealth and economic inclusivity. I think you all read, honorable members, there what the Constitution says. The second objective in that national security strategy is to bring strategic direction and synergy to the work of the state so as to address duplication of effort, align government processes with key threats and challenges, seamlessly integrate governance systems, ensure effective utilization of resources, and ensure collective interpretation of mandates. I hope you read in that, honorable members, that we sometimes don't do that efficiently. The last objective from the national security strategy is to contribute by way of a shared national security understanding to the process of nation building. We have a huge deficit in nation building and the emergence of a coherent and cohesive society working towards a better life for all. My last slide, please. No. Yes, thank you. Just a brief thought triggers for you, honorable members and the minister. What then is this concept we are going to present about? We state that since 1994, the democratic state has invested huge fund allocations into social spending, in education and training, in health, expanding access and affordability, even of tertiary education, to millions of youth from historically disadvantaged communities. However, this massive investment and expanded access hasn't translated into resolving questions of security and development, safety and security, nation building, the continuing precipitate breakdown of the social fabric, which amongst others leads to increased lawlessness. If we take our bearings from the national security strategy, then there has to be a shared national security understanding of the process of nation building and the emergence of a coherent and cohesive society working towards a better life for all. Should we do so, honorable members and honorable minister, then there is every reason to believe that the 1996 White Paper on Defense dream deferred for a very long 30 years might be realized. Chair, I would like to hand over to Councillor Richards.
Thank you, Chair. Councillor Richard, proceed.
Thank you, co-chairs, Madam Honourable Minister of Defence and Military Veterans, committee members, our colleagues around the table. What you see on the slide is the biggest South African flag that you can ever imagine. And it speaks to our belief in our constitution and what we stand for as South Africans. Now, as alluded to through the conversation thus far, this Reserve Force Council went about to create an understanding of what the Reserve Force capability could mean for South Africa. And it has adopted a theme that will be the beacon of its term of office over the next few years until May 2030. And that theme is imagining the Reserve Force system for South Africa, building strategies, not plans. Our hypothesis is in two parts. The first is to reflect on the military capability of the Reserve Force system. And so over the course of history as documented, a Reserve Force system as a military capability has existed. And it existed because it was employed to secure the ideals of the state. And that Reserve Force system of the past has been adapted to the circumstances in context of the time resourced, expanded, and even to shrink in military form, size, and resources. Similarly so, after the 1994 democratic era for South Africa. It was adapted to fit circumstances, resourced as within the context of the time, and expanded, now reduced in size, form, and shape as compared to the past evolutions of the Reserve Force military capability. The lesson that one should learn from this understanding, in our hypothesis, is that the Reserve Force system, even as a military capability, has always been part of the military design of South Africa. It is therefore not a new phenomenon to imagine the Reserve Force system for South Africa and to describe how such a system will look, i.e. its future military orientation, what it will be used for, the levels of expected resourcing, training and equipment, and its size, the number on strength, and the geographical dispersion of that system. On the second portion of our hypothesis, we note in our cursory research that we have conducted so far that across the state, departments have launched individual projects to alleviate the despair that live amongst our communities, given the challenges of legacy policy, poverty, inequality, and deprivation. Those three things have been significantly impactful on our communities and curtails a community's will to thrive in the new dispensation. These state departments, a few are listed here, of which the first listed, Department of Rural Development and Land Reforms, pilot projects in terms of youth, alleviating youth unemployment, are but one of the departments that stood out for the Reserve Force Council in their contribution to make a dent in youth unemployment and to get to a point where our communities thrive. However, as we have gone through the research understanding, we find that such programs are likely to come to a halt because there is a difference between what your department's mandate is and what the objectives and the aspiration is to alleviate youth unemployment and limits our communities to thrive. And once that point is reached by an entity, they then impose restrictions. And there are several examples within this context that limits then the efficacy of the pilot project. So therefore, the Reserve Force Council believes that a unique opportunity exists, as our chairperson have alluded to, for our government to purposefully pursue alleviating the plight of communities and more specifically youth unemployment. So when we went about trying to gain an understanding about what do we mean by this theme that will be the beacon for the Reserve Force Council, we wish to indicate that the term imagining speaks to the future orientation of the Reserve Force system and its military capability. And whatever those are imagined as, it needs to be purposeful in its execution. We are talking about the Reserve Force system and not only of a military capability. And we are talking about the Reserve Force system in the context of our national security strategy, which propagates all of government approach, resilience, and sustainability of efforts as we move along. The four speaks to our aspiration as a country that our communities thrive in order that South Africa be prosperous. So there have been many strategies, plans being developed over a number of years. And we start at the red block, where we say, in terms of our Reserve Force capability of the past and the present, this is the road that we have traveled since post-1994. And that strategy, that scenario, was to retain in large portions the status quo of the military capability and possibly even the system. And it resulted in levels of decline initially and now currently reaching the state of waning levels of effectiveness. We are also on a road that we seek to embark upon shortly, where, as a military capability, as a defense force, we remain fortitude and resolve in our responsibility to our country. And we are focused on developing and establishing, and in some cases even re-establishing, our capabilities in order for our efficacy to come about being an effectively employed force. And its impact is on internal capabilities of the force under command. But this council wishes to travel another road with an all-of-government approach, where we say maybe the scenario should be to harness South Africans' youth vitality and to advocate for the reform of the system so that we can do good in society. And we say that because we are envisioning our intent to deliver directed research to support creative scenarios that we will be discussing into the future. Now, when we thought about and discussed and did cursory research about what is the concept, what does this concept mean for harnessing the South African youth vitality, at the highest levels, without delving into too much detail, there are 5 components to making a significant contribution to alleviate youth unemployment and to start rehabilitating our communities. The first, and not unlike in the past, the first is to increase the scope, scale, and relevance of the reserve force system, so that we can see into the future the stability of our communities. But in order to do that, we need some form of economic integration of our forces as they go through the reserve force system. Now, that cannot happen if the money don't flow for defense, because defense in its current form and state requires time and a lot of money to be able to absorb our youth vitality in large numbers so that it can make a dent going forward. And then subsequently, to advocate for reform in the system. And if all these parts work together, we as government representatives, as entities of government, the result that we see is that we could be prosperous and thrive. Now immediately, one would ask, now what would be the benefit structure at the highest level of our understanding then of harnessing the vitality of our youth? For the state, we say that we are staying true to the Constitution of 1996. We are harnessing this approach of government to address one challenge amongst the many challenges that government faces. We say, as for the state, it contributes to the defense and security of the state. We say that there will be a return on investment in ETD, which will deliver responsible citizens. We say that for the state, we need to galvanize the business sector responsibility by way of possibly incentivizing it. We say that a better spend that makes sense, and that speaks directly to the let the money flow component of our concept for the defense. We say that one policy that synergizes and integrates with the reserve force system will bring about civil responsibilities within the military capability. We say that that one policy, that one view, that one approach can be centralized and coordinated to deliver youth employment on a large scale. And then finally, for the state to start to make a contribution to rebuild our communities. For our communities, it means when you join, you feed another, you care for the other. You walk in your own shoes and you wear your own clothes. We start to rebuild the family nucleus. We become responsible citizens. We choose to build and not to destroy, because our forces will be there to support our communities. Many examples exist. And in doing all of that, we may also make an impact to alleviating and lessening the abject poverty in areas of our country, the inequality that exists across our country, lessen in part the crime scourge of our society, and lessen the burden that social ills of a society is suffering. And we, as a community, can then be whole, be prosperous, and thrive as a country. For the SANDF, it means that it's an all-volunteer force. That this force, in large numbers, should be paid at a private salary and be incubated for a period of 3 years. That they are developed, our youth, and given exposure in the workplace. They are guided to be responsible citizens, as there are examples of that in pilot programs. Not all of them will fight for South Africa. Not all of them will become uniquely designed for military application, but most will help. And most will help speaks to the benefits to the community and for the state. For the Defence Force, we envision that it will have enough to sustain itself in the fight. And we, as a Defence Force, we look after our own, meaning that we explore opportunities where we can enhance the benefit structure of all our soldiers, regulars and reserves. But at the base of it, as the chairperson has indicated, the chairperson of the Joint Standing Committee, our minister, and our chairperson of the Reserve Force Council, the crux of this matter is, given the challenges within the defense profile, force preparation would be able to be expanded and force readiness enhanced going into the future. So let's then delve down into a deeper level understanding. And here, with your permission, Chairperson, I will only address as to what the description is of the concept that we are dealing with, and maybe just reflect here and there on the blocks left and right below the rectangular one. So what do we mean by harnessing South Africa's youth vitality? We mean that matriculants and graduates, both academic and vocational, are streamed to the reserve force, where they are incubated for a period of 3 years, and in that process be prepared for their employment in the public and private sector thereafter. That's what we mean. But in order to do that, we need to forge agreements, as in the case of incentivizing businesses and the like, and even possibly, potentially, adapt our policies, frameworks, and ultimately even some of the legislation. What we have currently, and I move to the right block, is that our existing reserve force profile do not match our aspiration for efficacy and effectiveness in defense of South Africa. So something needs to be done. And we are not proposing that this is the only way to do it. But certainly, members need to flow out of the current system, and other members, more younger, more fit, for purpose, flow into the system. And for those who flow out, there must be a secure transition. It will have the impact of lowering the age profile and increase the fit for purpose soldier profile that the reserve force capability are designed for. And so the premise that the government, all of government should focus and be focused on when it speaks about money is that more soldiers should cost less. And what do we mean when we describe increase the scope, scale, and relevance of the reserve force system? We mean that our SANDF is geographically distributed. We can actually reach the deepest rural areas of South Africa where poverty and inequality are most prevalent. because some of our units are dormant, and that is scope. We are saying and we are describing that it is a proven history that the South African National Defence Force, as in its past, was able to incubate large numbers of youth who were provided with basic military training over an extended period of time, which is scale. And it provided employment at entry level, which engenders discipline and patriotism. And that is what we mean by relevance. I move on. What do we understand when we talk about increased stability in communities? Now, if you recall, I said you wear your own shoes and you wear your own clothes. We have examples in call-ups that young youth arrives there at the bus when they report with somebody else's clothes. That's the level of abject poverty that one can, when one does experience. But when basic military training is finished, he or she wears their own shoes and their own clothes. But more than that, money flows home to our nuclear family. And there's some form of financial stability to buy bread and lights and feed the children. And this is the reality that our communities suffer. Just out here in Cape Town, they are suffering. So we don't say to mean we will have an immediate impact on stability of our communities. But over time, a reserve force system of this magnitude, scope, scale, and relevance will have a positive impact on our community stability. Move on. One of the lessons in our cursory research and what the committee are well aware of, all these pilot programs seems to die when the expiry date of your internship or your program reaches. There's nothing coming next. Some are taken up, but not all. And this is where we will be advocating for our people after the incubation period to be integrated into public and private sector employment. Employment not for a year, employment for at least the period of 5 years. Now, if you wrap your mind around it, it means something needs to give in the private sector and in the public sector. But for our purposes, for our defense force as a military capability, we have an expanded force available to support South Africa. Both the primary objective, sovereignty and so on, but also the support to the people expanded. So we have a very good understanding of the constraints that the South African National Defence Force faces annually. And there's a lot of noise in the system. But what is true for us, we need as a government to let the money flow for defense, for them to be able to prepare for our youth to be engaged, to be employed for a period of 3 years, to be incubated for the purposes of alleviating youth unemployment. That is true. So there are many understandings of how this can happen. All we wish to indicate, you can throw defense with a lot of money right now, 100 billion rand. And I will tell you, all 99 billion rand will be transferred back to you. So we require a layered and resource plan that builds the South African National Defence Force capability in order that they may absorb the youth at the scale that we are envisioning. And obviously, these 4 things, these components of our concept strategy needs reform. Reform of regulations, reform of possible legislation, reform. And even reform in how defense think about the utilization of such large numbers of youth. That is for the chief to decide. So this is our strategic map, and it, like any strategic map, one goes into the other, and ultimately South Africa thrives. Our chairperson of the Reserve Force Council have placed the responsibility on the council to deliver a developed and researched concept strategy by November 2026. Because for us, there's only one strategy: to pursue that we harness the youth vitality of South Africa by spending energy, proposing things that will make relevant the five components so that we all can thrive, not just some. So in conclusion, we seek and we link with the chairperson of the Joint Standing Committee on Defence and the committee, as well as our minister, to say the strategic objectives are to rejuvenate and sustain the reserves. Rejuvenation for our council is a result of. It's not something that you can just do. Our end goal is a credible, effective, and supported system, and we call on our government, on this council, on this council, or this committee rather, that we collaborate, reach consensus as we move forward, trust one another, and be professional in dealing with the matters that we aim to discuss going into the future. I thank you very much, Madam Minister, Chairperson.
Chair, that is the end of our presentation. And I just want to conclude by saying, we hope you have considered what we have said. And I still want to reiterate that this is still a concept, a strategic concept that we will be continuing to work on, and we will be engaging other stakeholders, and we expect other stakeholders to engage us on this matter. Let me try to quote, because you have a bald-headed man next to you who's an intellectual and who keeps on sending me things to read, what they call academic papers. And also on your left, you have another, the other co-chair who's a doctor, Dr. Co-chair. And I want to...
The bald-headed man, for clarity.
I just want to try to quote something some of these intellectuals, especially from Stellenbosch and these universities, keep trying to civilize me. They talk, among others, about what is called a Clausewitzian Trinity. There was somebody somewhere around the 1780s into the early 19th century, Karl von Clausewitz, a German intellectual and a soldier. Clausewitz took of three key things that a national defense effort should be based on. That is the unity of the state with the people, and the army. In his time, there was only the army. There was no armed forces. Everything was the army. So what we are trying to propose you to today is to say, if we are going to have this capable defense force, in terms of regulars and reserves, and contribute to South Africa, which is safe and secure, and a strong South Africa, then we must make sure that defense is united with the people and the rest of the state. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Chair. Thank you for your presentation. Chair, in your conclusion remarks now, when you say if, we need to have, not if. We need to have. We have no choice. You have the minister here. You have the members of parliament here. And we need to have a defense force which will be able to defend its citizens. We have no choice. And thank you very much, Chair of the Council, and thank you very much, Minister, and thank you very much all the presenters, Councillor Richards and Councillor Shabalala. We will hear what other councillors would say in this engagement, and we are going to hand over to members of Parliament to interrogate and engage on your presentation. But you know, from where I'm sitting, I'm so excited to hear. But I'll hand over to members of Parliament to engage on your presentation. Members, I think I see your hands. Okay, I'm going to start from the back and come with it. And Honourable Kotzel, have you raised your hand?
No, thank you, Chair.
You haven't. Okay, let me start from Honourable Plagis and then I'll come with it from here. Honourable Plagis?
Thank you, Chair. Chair, I want to welcome the presentation also, Minister, for the appointment of the board so that they are there now in the fully fleshed and working. Mine is just, I'm just having the presentation. I want to welcome it in its totality, but have been working in other spheres of government. This presentation is basically what I would say is being pitched in other departments. And I'm wondering, in your collaboration, General, if you ever look and come across the National Rural Youth Service Corps, NARISEC, where what you are actually presenting is what NARISEC is basically doing. And they are doing it under the scope of the SNDF, although they are placed in rural land and rural development reforms. They are placed there, but basically where they find the training and the collaboration is in Defense Force. And they are a youth project that is getting skills and necessary training from the Defense Force, but get placed outside of Defense Force in other departments and areas. And what I'm picking up here is basically what you are proposing, is to get youth into a system, train them, and then move them out to the broader community and make sure that we deal with the issue of unemployment. But when I pick it up immediately, I said, this is NARISEC proposal. Also, on the issue, I don't see, I suspect you want to follow the same route. When you recruit them, the training will be through SANDAF and then put them out at a later stage to different departments, which is a question that I'm having, as you are supposed to be supporting and supportive of SADF as the reserve force. How are you going to deal with the civilian and military aspects in your proposal? The capacity building, I suppose you already know where you want to get the capacity from, where will you have the training that will be landed. But my issue is, you are going to give them civilian training, what is needed in the country in a whole. Where are you going to place yourself as a reserve force port supporting the military? Where are you going to place yourself in the issue of the civilian part? And that is basically, Chair, what I wanted to bring to the attention of I don't know, is it questions, comments of enrichment on your presentation, but that is just my bite on your presentation. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you very much, Chairperson. My question, Chair, is in regard, to the proper training that when do you get convinced that, the reserve force members are properly trained, to participate in any deployment? And then two, when it comes to calling of the reserve force members, how are you calling them on a rotational basis? Because there are sometimes complaints that some of the reserves are not being called, and they feel like they sort of that the department is selective when it comes to the deployment of the reserve force. Thank you.
Honorable Shalembe, Honorable Priet.
Thank you, Chairperson. Chairperson, yes, let me follow my colleagues to welcome the presentation. There's a lot of reading and there's a lot of plans. I like it, and it's almost as if Honourable Plaatjes took the words right out of my mouth, because my first question is also with regards to Narisek. In my former life in the 6th Parliament, I served on the Portfolio Committee of Agriculture, Land Reform and Rural Development. So that is a specific interest for me, and I would like to know in terms of that. I know the Navy, we were on oversight in Saldanha, and I know they work very closely with Dalrad, which is now just the RDL, with the Narisek program. So how are we? Because what I'm getting largely is that you have identified, I think it is on page 17, correctional services and SAPs and rural development that have these programs. Are you looking at completely doing your own thing and creating an own program for youth employment, or are you looking at actually partnering with the already existing programs and see how you can better them and partner with them? And then I'll move on to that, Chairperson, continuing on this same trajectory. Is what evidence is there that these military-led programs do actually work? Deputy Council Member, you said that there is a big problem in terms of employment and keeping those people employed, and I think that's the big problem we are seeing. So is there evidence that these military-based programs work, and are there? You have spoken about a wish to see long-term and at least 5-year employment, but what are the concrete plans to ensure this in terms of partnering with the private sector, civil society, etc.? Also, what is the projected cost of this going to be? Because it sounds like a lot of money, and I do not know whether DOD has that. And then I can move on to that in terms of how is there capacity to train, and linking that to will this and the capacity to train and focusing on this program, will it not take away from the SANDF and combat readiness of our actual forces if we spend money on that or not? You've also mentioned, and please just be it clearly, as I understood it, you are envisioning the reserve force to be both focusing on additional defense, but also on youth employment, to have those two legs that the reserve force actually stands on. And then, Chairperson, maybe my second to last question, how will we, and this links to my further question with the programs like Narisek and correctional services and everything, and we've seen a lot of silo working in government, how will we ensure coordination between the different departments and having them actually buy into this? And how will we ensure that this is not just, this is my last question, Chairperson, how will we ensure that this project is not misused? And I don't want to make political statements, but do allow me, Chairperson, if I might reference the NYDA and, 140 million rand parties and etc. How are we going to ensure that this program is not misused for political gain? Thank you, Chair.
Thank you very much, Chairperson. Also, let me welcome the presentation that is enlightening us what the Reserve Force Council will do. I think also I will touch to the issue because that question I've already written, but my colleagues have raised it, that the council must look at the issue of NARISEC and this reserve force, the conflict that may be there, and try to come up with strategies in avoiding that. So I've already written that issue of NARISEC by looking at the presentation. And then also the issue of saying that we want the defense force that is combat ready. And now, looking at the presentation on what the reverse force will do, I want to check how will the council ensure that is the reverse force council, ensure that by expanding it to social and economic roles, it will not weaken that combat readiness that we want in our defense force and the discipline. How will the Reserve Force Council ensure that it doesn't? And also, because there will be huge numbers of recruits that will be recruited through the reverse force. And then looking at SANDF, because SANDF is the one that will do the training. Does it have capacity to train and manage those large numbers? If you saw that it doesn't affect any SANDF's operational readiness and other issues. Thank you.
Thank you, Honorable Hala.
Thanks, Chair. Good morning once more. Honorable Chair, when I received this report, going through it, I nearly called our Secretary, Nandi, to say, why is she sending us a report from the municipality? Because I was seeing the councillors, and but when I went through it, I said, oh, maybe that's the way they are called. General, just clarity is not questions. As you will be recruiting these reserve force members, obviously when they arrive at your establishments, definitely there will be trained defense force members. Now, let's say for argument's sake, at Camp A, the OC is a colonel. And some of the reservists are senior than him. how is it going to be done, the question of seniority? If I come there as a colonel and the OC is an adjutant, am I going to start with the adjutant or vice versa? What will be the benefits of these reserve force members? Are they going to be the same as the permanent force members that were permanent before they retired to come and join the reserve force? Okay, let me pause it there.
Honorable Hala, Honorable Hatton.
Thank you, Chair. Chair, thank you for the presentation, and I would like for us to also get to know the other council members. Perhaps some short CV should be circulated so that we know who are the members of this council doing this very important work. Chair, let me call it a rather brave presentation, attempting to address two stark realities in South Africa. First is the national problem, the massive youth unemployment problem, growing year after year, which is part of the problems that we have with an economy that's not growing. That's not growing with the population growth. And it's getting worse with what is happening with what's happening in the Middle East. And then attempting to also addressing the other problem that the RFC actually perhaps should be grappling with on a daily basis, and that is the declining reserve force, the aging reserve force without a proper inflow, and in a few years' time, if this is not addressed, I think we won't even have a reserve force or a reserve force council anymore. There won't be any purpose. But and this presentation was done, and we could sense it, feel it, with compassion, because of the problem with our massive unemployment problem. Sometimes even the presentation become a bit emotional, the portion about the clothing and the shoes. Yeah. But Chair, this presentation relies heavily on the 1996 white paper. And while it doesn't entirely ignore the defense reviews, it actually sidelines it and does not actually make reference to it. Now, why? It avoids the defense reviews because the more detailed and binding guidance is found in the 1998 and 2015 defense reviews, and should actually be found in the reassessment that was never tabled in the promised October 2024 on that date. And perhaps even the answer to this could be found in the still secretive Journey to Greatness document. But it avoids that. It goes back to a 1996 policy. And why is this important? Because the defense reviews actually address force design. And it says exactly, and it translates policy into force design and defines the reserves as a military capability, specifically a search and support function. By not engaging these frameworks in this presentation, it presents a selective reading of defense policy that risks misrepresenting how the SANDF is to be structured and employed. So the defense review are not missing from this proposal, from the presentation. It's actually avoided because the defense reviews contradict what is on the table here today. So at first glance, it appears to be a very exciting proposal about strengthening and rejuvenating the reserve force But as the presentation went along, it's actually fundamentally different. It's something else. It's not a defense proposal, it's a youth employment program delivered through the military. And that's a very important distinction, because even the documentation makes itself clear that employment generation is the primary objective, with defense as a secondary outcome. And that actually raises a constitutional question. Constitution is very, very explicit. The primary objective of the defense force is to defend and protect the republic. So what we are now doing is actually redesigning, without reference to a defense review, who's addressing force design, into a labor market intervention tool. Yes, something like this should be done, but I don't believe that the SANDF is the right tool for that. It belongs somewhere else, and some of the colleagues actually stated that. So my question is, in the two defense reviews, 98 and 2015, the defense force, the reserve force is designed as a surge military capability. Now, on what doctrinal basis do we now have to redefine it, the SANDF, into a employment mechanism? Secondly, nothing in the proposal actually goes to force design, readiness level, operational integration required by the defense reviews, which is the obligation of the RFC as well as the reserve force. So how does this fit in? How do you actually structure this whole thing? And by saying that, it appears that you also realize that this is perhaps should have been done at another level, not at the RFC level. Then a primary mandate conflict. How do you reconcile an employment first model with the defense review's defense first doctrine and combat readiness requirements, where we move on into another sphere totally? Fourthly, what safeguards ensure that expanding into the socio-economic sphere does not degrade the SANDF's training standards and operational readiness? So, and by ignoring the defense reviews in the presentation, in this whole plan and the scheme, in what structure do you actually now rely on to go forward as with the search and support roles of the reserve force? I thank you, Chair.
Honorable Kokil.
Thank you, Chair. Firstly, I must say, really, this is good work, great work, great work in progress, because it's work in progress. Because I've highlighted some areas where I felt a bit impressed, more especially when you are saying we are talking about the age group, of the defense force, the serving members, because that is not working. We can't have old soldiers still serving full time in the defense force, which is what is happening in our country, But let me come to this. Number one, would I be far off by thinking that probably another thing that the reserve force can look into, for instance, the president alluded to, which is something that we are busy with, and already, you know, it's in the pipeline, the deployment of soldiers. Now, serving soldiers will be deployed to assist the police, you know, instead of taking those who are serving in the defense force to assist the police, you utilize the reserve force, and they are given a training, you know, then they are utilized for that service, you know. Because now, for instance, the president, that deployment will be for about a year, you know, and after a year, then we go back, the crime escalates again, you know. So, but if we are having dedicated people for that, you know, I think it's something to look to, that you can look into. And I do not know, you know, the gentleman you said is a farmer. The supply of the military bases with land of fresh vegetables, meat, supplies, and everything, you know. I'm not sure, because I'm thinking that the training of the youth, then they can be utilized. The defense force has got farms and everything. Probably some of them can be given that training. You work together with the defense, with the rural development and agriculture, you know. I was thinking also about the NARISEC program, but I think my colleagues have covered me there, you know, in the NARISEC program. Then another thing that cropped to my mind, it's the MSDS program, the Military Skills Development System, because there's a disjuncture there. Those young men and women are sent for training for that, is it 2 years? Then after that, those who are not absorbed, you know what happens? They get into the database of military veterans. They become military veterans. How can you have military veterans who have 26 years? And as a result, the budget of the Department of Military Veterans get depleted, because now they become military veterans, and I mean, they are still young and active. They have kids and stuff. They deplete the education budget and any other thing. They get the pension that is supposed to be given to military veterans at that young age. That is what is happening, you know, which I'm sure the Honorable Minister will look into it. So I think probably you can, you know, that budget which is used for the MSDS program probably be diverted to the reserve force, or you work together and, you know, do something different from, you know, I mean, you can't train and train and train people, you know. Sometimes you don't even need to train people as soldiers. Then the lack of space in universities, it's one thing that was raised in Parliament yesterday, and the response that came up was that the President said they must build more universities. I mean, that is good to build universities, but how long is that going to take? So I see now, you know, you are mentioning that you are talking about the matriculants and graduates, because some of the matriculants today, I do not know the estimated, but the estimated number, who are supposed to be going to university, who qualify, can't get into that space, you know. So you need to probably work with the Department of Education, you know, and see how can you, you know, because I mean, we have to work together, try to assist, because it's our challenge, it's your challenge, the youth you know, in our country. And the defense review, I saw that you did speak about it, the defense review. However, you know, I do not know who is working on the defense review, but I think you need to speak, you know, the same language so that whatever that you are proposing finds, you know, itself in that defense review, you know, what you are proposing must be captured there. And, oh, I've already spoken about the reinforcement and the police. Yes. Or they use, there's another national youth training. You know, I think that, you know, it is rural development or something, but there are many programs, like you had already said so. You know, there are many programs when you look in these departments, but like my colleague said, you know, we tend to work in silos, there's no synergy, you know, probably you need to bring that together, you know, and work as a council that will help our government, you know, get its stuff, you know, in one basket. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Honorable. Honorable Noah.
Thank you, Chairperson. Largely, areas that I would have wanted to lynch on have been already raised, so I'm left with only a few. Firstly, Chair, I want to also acknowledge the document and the details that it is covering. However, I also have some few concerns, like, firstly, Chair, the question that I'm asking myself is whether the document, based on its conceptualization, has it gone enough in terms of consulting? Largely, the structures that are already existing, some have already been mentioned, like your NYDA. As far as the area it is intending to address, basically that of the youth. Secondly, is this only one part of the reserve force that perhaps it will be focusing on? I want to believe that the mandate of the reserve force does not only end on this very program that has been presented here. So it therefore says to me, for the purpose of the committee, there is still some more that needs to be presented to the committee based on what the council is actually looking forward as far as their mandate is concerned. Thirdly, Chair, the areas of the review documents have been covered, but I will only also throw one question. If you look at slide 13 and slide 14, it says the council probably have gone through its analysis of the failures or the challenges of government in terms of implementing those programs since 1994. It definitely says nothing has happened. And therefore, it is coming, not necessarily nothing has happened, but largely there's a failure. And therefore, it is coming with a different injunction in terms of developing the youth. Because if you look at bullet 2 However, this massive investment and expanded access hasn't translated into resolving questions of security and development, safety and security, nation building, and so on. And then slide 14, then it covers that part where I think the chairperson also did not read this slide. So it definitely requires the council somehow to indicate whether, like it makes reference there, the NYDA, which areas basically they think these other structures failed, and whether are they going to then implement their own programs as a standalone, or are they also going to work hand in hand with this other structure so that we avoid the silo kind of operation. Then on what my colleague I think was referring to is on slide 26, the block to the extreme left, the first bullet, it says, a new defense review directive is developed that supports the employment enablement in the reserve force. Now, my worry there is that there will be development of documents after documents, but as you are already saying, we are not going anywhere. Is it about developing a new defense review, or is it about ensuring that we implement what Honorable Hatang has already said? Lastly, Chair, where I am excited because I received a letter from a young person in my area making a proposal after he engaged me on what he see, what is happening in the village. And I'm going to read it with your permission, Chair. And then it's going straight to Mema Chavalala and the gentleman next to him. And definitely, I think this letter comes handy in what we are discussing here, Chair. I asked him to develop a proposal so that I can forward it now. Thanks that here is the platform. On behalf of the new Eye for All, we respectfully submit this proposal for the establishment of National Youth Discipline and Development Camps in South Africa. This gentleman, his father was a defense member, so he knows something about the youth development in defense. Communities across the country are increasingly concerned about the growing challenges of youth involvement in drugs, gangs, school violence, and lack of discipline. Many parents, particularly in rural communities, face economic difficulties and are unable to provide sufficient structure and opportunities for their children. This proposal suggests the creation of structured discipline and development camps during school holidays, supported by government departments, community organizations, and where appropriate, the South African National Defence Force. These camps will provide young people with discipline, leadership training, mentorship, life skills, and supportive and positive recreational activities, helping them become responsible citizens and future leaders. We believe this initiative can play an important role in protecting the next generation and strengthening communities across South Africa. Sincerely, Tsepo Sibeko. There you are. I will test you with this proposal on your commitment on this document. Chair, this is emanating from what is already happening, Minister, in the villages. There are gentlemen organizing themselves, bringing youths and conducting camps, and parents are paying close to 10,000. There is a scale here that he shows. Just for taking your child into the camp and rehabilitating them. But what he has found is that it's people who are also not well trained to conduct such trainings. So somehow it does expose children also who are going to be rehabilitated. So thank you, Chair, for allowing me to read this letter. I will definitely forward it to the board.
Thank you, Honourable Nue. That is a hanging fruit, Chair and councillors. This is definitely a hanging fruit, this must be it must be inserted in slide 3 of your presentation, where you speak about your stakeholder analysis. I'll propose, on the basis of that letter, you add stakeholder number 6, which is society, which you have spoken about in terms of the flag, in terms of the constitution, and in terms of, so we propose on the basis of that letter, you add that stakeholder number 6, which is our society. And you're speaking much about our society. And honourable members, let's continue. Before I come, I think I will give a co-chair an opportunity to pose some few questions as well. Chair.
Thank you, Chair. Just, I think I'm generally covered by what other honourable members have said. I just would like to make 2 points. One is that the Reserve Force Council strategy for rejuvenation and sustainability should sound more like a Defence Forces document than a youth employment strategy. And I will say that, I say that because what should underpin it is the whole discipline, philosophy of the National Defence Force, and therefore issues like patriotism, like discipline should feature prominently. You are not just recruiting young people to get them employment. Others will do that. You do not want members of the Reserve Force, when they are deployed, to start asking you questions about my right this, my right that, my union this, my union that. At the heart of you joining the Reserve Force is the fact that you might be called upon to take up arms, and it might be in conditions, you know, there are conversations, difficult conversations we often have with the generals, minister. Sometimes in your presence, sometimes in your absence. And I think General Sangweni likes repeating this, that these people you are talking about are soldiers. So when you're talking about soldiers, they understand that they will be deployed at times or most of the time under conditions that are not conducive, that when we sit as civilians and think about that, hey, now me as a civilian, I wouldn't like to be deployed under the following conditions, but they are soldiers. They know they must go and serve there under those conditions. And I think that discipline, that philosophy, has to underpin what appears in this document, so that it doesn't become a document, a strategy like any other, and then when people are listening to it, they wonder, what's the difference? Am I joining the Reserve Force Council, or am I just becoming a member of the National Youth Service that will go serve in nice conditions? So I think that's the issue. I find it missing in the document. And I would like you to bring it forth and ensure that it becomes part of the philosophy underpinning this strategy. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you, Co-Chair. Mine, Chair and councillors and the Minister. The reserve force is a key component of national security in any country. And now, the high-level minister of crime in the country today attest that we do not have that component which is living within the community. Because the reserve force will be the eyes and ears of government if we have adequate enough, well-trained reserve force members in our communities. So that's a critical component, and a component which you mentioned in your presentation, that in times of need, you are able to mobilize those people, those contingent, to assist. I will further say, Minister, I have two things to ask as well here, which I noted. To say, councillors, you have all your key stakeholders here. The minister is here. The reserve force is here. Members of parliament are here. And if we are, and already the society has given you a nod from the letter which is being handed over to you, it's a nod. If we are giving you a nod today, when can you have a fully fledged plan of the implementation of this concept? That's my first question, Chair and the councillors. My second question would be, what impact and effect will the conceptual model you propose in this strategic concept have on the youth in general, beside the youth who may or will volunteer to join the reserve force? The second point is there any model you propose for the socialization of youth in general so that we promote good, responsible citizen and patriotism? That is the part which we lack in this country, the issues of patriotism. We all know about the youth of the June 16 youth and the previous all other youth who were involved in the struggle, and their mode of operation was based on patriotism, the love of their country. The third question is that what are the issues which you think Parliament and executive, of course, minister here as an executive should focus on or do in order to rejuvenate both the reserve force and the regulars? Those are my questions. I hope you have noted all the questions. I'm going to hand over to you, Minister, and the Council to address, to deal with all the questions which were posed by members. Minister.
Chair, I won't deal with the responses, but maybe to add some points which I think come from what the committee has said, because I agree with Mr. Hatting when he says if we can provide a profile of all the councillors, because indeed it's a very impressive profile, which in a way gives a sense of what the commission is capable of doing. You have young people who are qualified engineers, not necessarily, so that if in the defense force you need extra skills for an emergency, then you have a pool of people who work with you, have been vetted, and you can interact with them, not looking for jobs. So it's not only a job creation program. It's exactly what the speaker was saying, that it's a three-legged process where, yes, indeed, it's jobs, and I'll get back to why it is important to look at jobs. but also in terms of getting South Africans themselves to come and volunteer back. Some of them are trained soldiers who will still be able to contribute in a certain way where there are disasters, but you want to process them into a coherent structure where you know who to call at a time of emergency, so that you don't also waste your skills that are there, that are lying out, which you need. So it's actually also a civil or societal process where you coordinate your forces, and then indeed it's jobs. And I'll tell you why jobs are important, Chair. There would have been a situation where we had our reserve forces in the border, and then I was told there was corruption. When I asked DI to say what is happening, they said the system of reserves that we call in for 3 months in this unemployment tempts them, because they know after 3 months they have to go. So for the other 3 months they are not there. So it is, the unemployment itself becomes an albatross. So you cannot be able to have a stable reserve force if you are not able to also look at the other long-term needs. And that's why you need both approaches. But I think, as colleagues are saying, it should be defense first, and therefore, which means you can't also lump in everything around youth development on this program, because then it becomes untenable, it just becomes unworkable. So your NASRA could be a different, so that the whole thing is to get government to coordinate, but not to take all other functions. You focus on that which defense would need, with the sense of mobilizing South Africans to be able to be that reserve force. Even professionals who are not going to look for jobs, but who want to be volunteers, who have to be processed, who have to be screened. For me, it's one of the key things that the council should be able to look at. The incident, without taking too much of your time, for instance, when we lost soldiers during the floods, people who helped us mostly were people who really had other equipment and other capabilities which we didn't have. But also partnering with government. When we were looking for that soldier, it was local people who were helping us right through the river to find the remains, and that's what you want society to do, to be part of your system. When we couldn't take the truck out, we didn't have equipment right in Mpumalanga. Local farmers were able to extract it for us with experience, and that's what you want also for your defense force, where you can mobilize. Even in the borders, under apartheid, the borders, the farmers were used to block entry into the country through just being allocated farms. But now today's farmers are even blocking patrols. And maybe it's not out of bad feelings, it's because of trust deficits. So you also need, and that's why we need people who work with the farming committees to mobilize, to say it's in our interest, all of us, allow these patrols, but get people to know each other so they're not scared when people come in. So I'm saying it's even broader than just skills, but skills is very important. And I don't want to take most of your time, because the other skills you want, which will be soldiers, but also skills which can give you soft power. If we're going to go to Western Cape, where the society has been completely disintegrated, you don't only want to come with guns, you want social workers, you want counselors to really come in after, but who will understand trauma, who can work with you. Again, you don't want everybody coming in and then have an uncontrolled situation. You want your volunteers who are part of your database, who you have agreed on how to approach the situation, Chair. So I'll ask the colleagues to respond, but as I say, I've taken no notes, and I must really appreciate that. This is part of the engagement that we have to go on and say, even advising each other what can come in. As I say, there will still be other programs in other departments, and maybe when colleagues are finished, I'll even give you about the pilot. It's just that I think the presentation was out, the concept about other things that we're trying to do, which, because this is a heavy lift, as colleagues are saying, or MPs are saying, which is a very ambitious program, which is necessary. But it's quite right that you have to bite it piece by piece so that you really don't cause yourself unnecessary problems, and then need to hurry slowly and make sure that you can do it properly. But it is a very ambitious program, but which I think it's it's key, and I really appreciate the engagement, and maybe we'll comment after on other points that you want us to proceed on. So I'll ask colleagues to support and yeah.
Thank you, Minister. Thank you, Chair. Chair, let me commend your members of your committee for all of these questions that they've asked. And that's making us think much harder on what we've been working on. I've been listening to the many questions, but I'm also impressed by the fact and happy that some of the members provided answers to the questions they asked. Like Honorable Noor, he referred to slide 13 and 14, and he immediately provided an answer about what is reflected on that slide. What he says, a youth a young person was written to her, which is something we welcome. But where I want to start, I will not, we will share the answering, but I will start with picking up various aspects of these questions. But I want to start to the foundation we have missed with regards to how to build a defense force post-1994. We have all of these documents, your white paper on defense 1996, defense review 98, defense review 2015. We have missed the basics, the foundational aspect, which is how defense relates with society and how defense relates with the economy. Before I explain what I'm trying to say, let me clarify what I think there's been a bit of confusion. Maybe our message didn't come through clearly. We're not mixing up the question of youth development and job creation. We're not mixing these two things. In this concept, there are basically two streams, but which are joined in terms of what defense can provide in terms of its collateral capability. One stream, which you are concerned about, is the rejuvenation of reserves, which is the minister's one of the minister's main objectives currently. That's one stream in what we are proposing. The second stream is what is to be done to have an intervention in society, because part of our society is afflicted by problems of one, breakdown of social fabric. Let me say that black society in general, what you see in these townships here in Cape Town, Joburg, everywhere else, are problems of the breakdown of the social fabric, and also problems of the unintended consequences of the pre-94 era, which have resulted into continued instability and in these disadvantaged areas. And no measures have been done, deliberate measures have been undertaken to deconflict these societies. Not at all. That's the other stream. That's what projects like NARISEC should work towards, if they are enhanced. And yes, the whole of society will be involved. Defense can't take on that responsibility, like in the case, Minister and Chair of the Department of Rural and Development Program. Let me say the following, Minister. I hope your offices must have asked, for instance, HRD to provide you with the statistics, what has happened with that program since 2011 when it was introduced. Probably around 20,000 troops, according to the statistics I received from Human Resources, 20,000 from Rural Development, doing a 14-week program. But the career pathing of all of those kids is done by that department. They recruit them themselves. They, for instance, they used to use, I don't know whether they still do, the old Tabanchu Teachers Training College outside Bloemfontein, which was their mobilization area. And they would take them into cohorts of 800 and so on. One group that will go to Saldanha, which Honorable Breat mentioned, and another group going to Trisa and Kimberley. 2 intakes or 4 intakes a year since 2011. I'm not sure where that still continues, but from the statistics I got around 2019. Those were raw youth, the type when you see a young chap that you see him middle, you know this one. If you don't know your story, he'd probably search your pockets, take your cell phone quickly. But when he comes there, after 14 weeks, if he was a Rasta smoking dacha, within 2 weeks they've shaved those Rasta hair, and he has been searched, and there's no way he will get dacha, unless maybe when he's back home. That's all right. And many of them came out of the program, resocialized. That program only serves as a rite of passage, which is missing in many societies, in many communities, where you either have broken homes, single-parent-headed households, and all of those things. And there's no actual proper upbringing of these kids. So that's what that program serves. But it has been a standalone to rural development program. Then social development would send to defense youths, which is better than what Honorable Noor has mentioned, where they would do 2 weeks of youth camps and so on. There has been also the latest version by some of the provinces, such as Gauteng, what is called Mapanyaza and so on. So what we say, those would need to be rationalized, become a sort of a national youth service, where all of these youths who benefit from what is called NSFAS, who end up burning down Forte, that's all right here, should in some way a way be found where they can be streamed through that process, sort their minds out, discipline, character building, leadership building, without militarizing them, because that program, what it does, it trains these youths almost to military specifications, but without combat training. They don't do firearms. The second stream is what we're talking about, which is of immediate interest to you, the reserves, which has mostly been elaborated on. These ones will be volunteers. Those ones in the other stream can still say, no, but I need to become something better than just a national youth service trained youth. I want to become a reserve force member. I think I can be, and upscale my capacity to defend the country. So that one would then would join this stream as a volunteer, wouldn't be forced. So no one must mistake in saying we are suggesting that all youth would be militarized. No, they won't be. But
for the SAPs.
Yes.
Also draw from SAPs.
Yes. Others can be streamed to SAPs rather than picking up any other Jack and Jill and end up being a policeman or policewoman. But at least we have to chisel the person, and then he can be recruited to other state departments. But let me make the following example. We sometimes avoid making reference to history. Why have we struggled with reserves post-94? And why there was no struggle with reserves pre-94? The real reason for that is not because pre-94 defense had a very huge budget. No, that was probably 30% of the story. The main reason that the SADF could generate reserves into the hundreds of thousands over time was not because of the defense budget, was because every white young person was recruited from school and would go to do national service, whilst others go to university and return and do national service. But they all went back to jobs. They were not unemployed. The economy could absorb them. So what we are trying to propose here, honorable members and minister, is to say we must have a system which, going forward, one, the reserves that we have would have to be catered for along this spectrum. That's where they will not just be trained militarily and then thrown into the street and they try to look around for jobs. They should have requisite skills and all of that. At the same time, because the defense force will always be small, just like the police. That's right. There must be measures to deconflict the broader youth, especially in my view, focusing on this very combustible age bracket, your 18 to probably 24, 26. This is how I see it. Not that the others who are a little bit older should be forgotten. No. So that's what I would want to say in briefly in answering this, so and avoid monopolizing this. At this juncture, then, I would like Chair and Minister to have the members of the RFC delegation to pick questions that they can answer and within the time frames that we have. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Chair of the Council. You can proceed. You can answer the questions as members pose them.
Thank you. Thank you, everybody, to the Minister and the committee. There is a question here that really piqued my interest, and I thought I should say something about it, because I think one of the honorables spoke about 26-year-old who are veterans, in those who are maybe after MSDS, they're out and that. So I joined the military back in 2012 through the program called University Reserve Training Program. I was already doing my BSc in mechanical engineering at UCT, just around here. So it's not a normal thing where you see the SANDF band marching on campus, but that day it was. So I was intrigued. I wanted to find out why they're here. Then I followed. They presented about an opportunity where they can have youth or young people who are pursuing their degrees, whatever they're doing already, and they can do that without choosing between the two paths. So you can do both. And this training was to be designed to happen during recess, so when university closes. So when my last exam day was today, tomorrow I'll then go to Fort Kapa military base for my training, and the day before I'll come back. And then we did that up until I finished my training. I am a reserve officer as I speak right now with my first number. What basically happens is when I'm done, I'm not called up by my unit, but I know where my unit is. In 2021, when there was unrest, my unit called me up and says, we need you to come. So the training was not just to socialize and help with character building and leadership. Obviously, that was very critical for my forming and making me who I am to date as a leader in society and in the circles that I happen to exist in, my work and everything else. But my normal day, I am a mechanical engineer who does mechanical engineering job, and then I do that. But when the country requires me, because I know when I joined, I will be called up when the country needs me. So I am able to say to my employer, here is the request from the SANDF, and they're able to accede to that, and I am being, or I can be deployed. So that's one part of it, to say, it's not necessary to say that with this capability of people who are there, then we need to just keep them up to say that there's employment and everything else. It's quite critical, but if we can have these critical skills in the back pocket. So for example, some of the equipment that would have been used in some of the missions, as a mechanical engineer, they can say, so we're looking for particular expertise. Can you come and assist us with how we can improve that? So those are some of the possibilities that are available. So we can have this capacity available, and it has happened before, like I'm talking about myself. There are other critical skills that are in the system that went through the same programs. They are reserves. And even if they're not called up for a number of years, when the time comes to the country requires them to come up to the country, we can rely on them being able to come up. And the other sort of part of it is patriotism for your country. So in many conversations, when I tell people that I'm a soldier with my full uniform and I'm ready to be called up, they're very interested as the youth and says, how does that work? Can I join and everything? And so I think there is a space where jobs are critical, hence our position talking about addressing the job, because it has other problems that are there, but as well as the other part of it where we can then create an environment where we can allow the reserves to come in the system, and then we can utilize them as and when they are required. So I just want to clarify that. Thank you, Minister.
Thank you, Councillor. That is exactly what a reserve force is, should be, and that's what we need to train more of. The councillor no Netonda.
Netononda. Thank you.
Yes. Okay. Yes, Councillor Westhuizen. Councillor Westhuizen.
Chair, my name might be easier. It's Ace.
Ace.
Chair, if and excuse my English, I come from a different part in South Africa where English is our second language in self-defense only. So if you don't understand my English, please bear with me. If I look at all the questions and we have to summarize the questions in, let's say, 2 or 3 or 4 questions. One main concern was the focus that's expressed by some of the members of this committee. It looks less military and more civilian job placement, like it might have sounded like that. Then the other one is, what is the difference between the current national youth development programs and all those things? And the intention of this concept that we are currently trying to put into paper or to develop or to research is the main focus is on the military, is to empower the reserve force to have the name that I think, sir, that you have mentioned, combat readiness, fit for purpose, soldiers who can fight in the trenches, if I can call it like that. And they must not, like I think what the co-chair also said, is that they mustn't debate it if I want to deploy or I don't want to deploy. That is our main focus. But to have that pool available, you have to provide those people, when they are not on call-up, with a capability. Otherwise, you're going to lose them. So if they don't have an employment after they call up, they disappear into the community. And then they become a part of the problem that was mentioned a couple of times. And I think there's one concept that maybe we need to reinvestigate is civil defense. It was mentioned eyes and ears. We do not have that capability anymore in our communities. And who are the first responders in our communities? So if we have a reserve force trained with a military skill that can provide the search capability in our SANDF if and when required, but when not on call-up, to be the first responders to tackle a fire that breaks out in Kailicha, or have an emergency response where there's medical person required. You have training in first aid on levels 1 and 2 and 3 that you can get through the military. So there are so many military skills that you can utilize in the civilian environment inside your community. And I think that is the main thing that we need to focus on. I'm much involved in South Africa in many of the provinces with regards to rural safety. And it's not just farmers or just the farming communities. The small towns is part of that rural area. And we don't have the resources to get police in time or to get the SANDF, the regular force, deployed in those areas if and when needed. We need the capability on the ground that can assist with this. But we also need a military capability if and when required, Chair. I don't know if I've explained it properly, but thank you, Chair.
You have. It's exciting. You have both explained it. That is exactly what we need, Minister. This can change, can play a big role in our communities. You want to add, Chabala, Councillor Chabala?
Chairperson?
Yes.
I just wanted to say, I think Honorable Briet asked a question about silo mentality. And it is part of what this council believes in, is consultation and collaboration. As part of our stakeholders also, we indicated that we will, at some point when we are developing the document, touch base with other relevant departments so that we avoid reoccurrence and wastage in that regard. So we appreciate that and a reminder to the council that we shouldn't be thinking only for the reserve force members, but thinking for South Africa, hence the concept that we are looking to develop. Thank you, sir.
Thank you, Councillor. The acting Chief of Reserve Force,
Thank you, Chair, Co-Chair, Minister of Defense, and committee members. There is no doubt it is exciting to listen to this presentation from the Reserve Force Council, and there is no doubt that we need to rejuvenate the reserves so that it can provide the search capability the SNDF so direly requires to respond to a variety of missions, and it has been alluded to as we discussed. And there are other problems, and I take note that members of the committee that are aware of the activities that is happening. There is a project, the minister will know that there is a project called Kubatlal, which focuses on agriculture, farming, and there are other projects that will be introduced. However, it has been decided that actually to ensure sustainability, then it will migrate to the production brigade. So it is exciting what the council is thinking about. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Acting Chief. Chair, you did not answer my question when I said you've got the stakeholders here. You've got the minister here. You've got members of parliament. You've got the acting chief of the reserve. Also, you've got the youth who Honorable Nua spoke up on behalf. And I said, if we are giving you a nod today, the plan, when can you give us a plan on this concept? How long would you take to give us a plan?
Yeah, Chair, as I said before, we're piloting a number of things, and I thought we would be able to say it. But the one I want to respond to, it's Mr. Nue's one, that we had a pilot with Gauteng, and because people were asking our capacity to do things, so the province identified the youth that were supposed to be there. We provided facilities and trainers, and we did that in partnership with the police. They called their own reserves also just to do some character building, some patriotism. And it was for me, it was a huge learning curve, because some of the kids that came there were exactly what you would have described. Even parents themselves were so happy that their kids went in there. Some of them got substance withdrawals, so which means unfortunately, there are medical facilities, so we had to deal with kids who really were addicted and didn't come for drugs, but it gave us a learning. Some were just preaching. You could see that these are signs of some psychological difficulties, unresolved social problems, like young girls who have been violated. And that camp gave me a good sense that our children are really coming very traumatized, and these camps are very necessary. We've been talking to provinces, for instance, Gauteng, even municipalities are ready they've identified, they're waiting for us to come in. But it's to really do the groundwork itself and work with partners, because we don't want to bring young people and not be able to place them. I mean, of that 500, we've already placed 4, because we went into partnership with the province and other institutions. Some of them went to health. Some of them were recruited by Defense Force, because just during training, you could see that this is a soldier. And the same thing, that you can sift people in good times, so that you don't end up taking people on basis of papers, but it's kids who have been able to observe for 4 months that these can be reliable soldiers. So what I think we should really look after is to really say, how do we, because we rely on partnerships with provinces, with municipalities. In Gauteng, Joburg municipality has even offered to refurbish that military base next to them so that we can take kids from there. But you're quite right, it's a very important program from the experience that we gained from that pilot. And if we can roll it and have the adequate resources, which I said at that time, for the 4 months, it was not a problem, because we partnered with police. They were able to bring their own reserves to assist us. We have adequate facilities. We've got lots of camps which we're not always using, where we can house these children. So I think it's one of the programs that I think we should pursue. We had started off with lessons, we're writing it up, and I will get the Sansi group, again, a partnership with Women's Ministry, with higher education, because we don't have the resources ourselves to give those stipends. those stipends were coming from higher education in terms of the different sitters which were going to place those kids in different areas. But I want to support what you are saying, that if we have to save our young people, even if it's not, just that 4 months made a huge difference to some of the kids. Up to now, they are part of the department. If we have functions, they want to come and do drills. They want, if I go to schools, they want to join me in schools and do drills. So you can see that it has really touched them in many respects, though there are challenges, like Kikaba says, it was difficult when we agreed on 3,000. Masebe part 3,000. So, but we had to deal with those things, but most of them were very appreciative. So there are these fallouts in the process to say, but 3,000 is too little. And we had agreed on the stipend is 3,000. It's unlike other areas where they give you a bigger stipend. But I think it's a program that we have to commit ourselves to doing in different provinces, because now we're ready with KZN, they've identified, recruited, but we're still not ready to move in. Eastern Cape is ready, Western Cape is ready, Free State is ready. But you're quite right, it should be a program that we consult and make sure that we recruit in a way that is not discriminatory and people just think that we are picking up people that you want, and that the system of recruitment must be neutral so that there are no complaints like it happened in Gauteng, because people up to now didn't appreciate how those people were identified and recruited. So we have to avoid those difficulties.
Chair, you still want to say something? I just wanted to give the minister to wrap up. But you're done. Okay. Okay. Minister, we thank you very much. We really appreciate your presence. We thank the engagement on this matter. This is a critical matter, Minister. As you can see, the members of Parliament, members of this committee, they take these matters seriously, and they want to see this department thriving, as members of the council are saying. The committee, Minister, and the chair wishes to commend the Reserve Force Council for its initiative to take the Reserve Force forward and to rebuild this important component of the SANDF. We also note the Council's intention to use this process to address some of the broader challenges facing South Africa, which is a positive and a forward-looking approach. At the same time, the question and inputs raised by members today in today's engagement highlight a number of real concerns regarding aspects of the Reserve Force Council's plans. Even at this early stage, we urge the Council to take these inputs seriously and to ensure that the concerns raised by members are carefully considered and integrated into your plan going forward. We further emphasize the importance of thorough engagement with the SANDF, particularly in relation to its blueprint force design and its views on the role and the positioning of the Reserve Force within the broader defense framework. Alignment in this regard will be critical to ensuring coherence and a practicality in the implementation. Honourable Minister, it is also evident from today's discussion that the journey to greatness and the capstone policy documents requires urgent finalization, as this will have a direct bearing on the planning and direction of the Reserve Force Council. We urge the engagement with the Cabinet, the National Security Council, to ensure the speedy finalization of these documents, its introduction to Parliament, and its distribution to the Reserve Force Council and other relevant bodies. The committee looks forward to engage with the Council again on a reworked, refined plan. We anticipate receiving this as indicated in the plan in November, and trust that it will reflect both the Council's vision and the inputs provided by members during today's session. We really appreciate it, Minister, and we are looking forward. We are looking forward for a new rejuvenated defense reserve, which will enable to assist us in the challenges which we are facing. With those a few words, thank you very much, Minister, and the chairperson and all the councillors, and you are released. Thank you.
Chairperson. Chair. Sorry, your release, does it include the minister? The reason why I'm asking, Chair, is the next item, I see we don't have a presentation on it, and I would have expected at least the minister to be present when we discuss this. It's letters of employment, like we discussed last week, Chair, and last week we received a presentation and we had an opportunity to engage the SANDF at least on that, and the Deputy Minister was here too.
We're engaging the subs. We've got a joint meeting next week on Friday, and I think that is where we'll discuss this. But for now, this is a report, Honourable Member.
But Chair, how are we going to approve the letter if we don't have the answers?
No. Okay. Let's release the minister. Then we'll discuss that, Honourable Member. We'll discuss it. Honourable Minister, you are released then. Yeah. Thank you. Okay. Thank you very much. Okay. Thanks, Minister. Five minutes, bathroom. 5 minutes. That's 5 minutes, Honourable members.
Yeah. I must meet you again.
Why did you correct me? Resign. Why didn't you correct me?
announced during the. We have the reports here. I think you have looked into the report. Can we engage on this report, honourable members? Yeah, let's give to Dr. Van Nasberg to deal with that part. Doc.
Thank you, Chair. I'll just take members through the draft report quickly and also try to just give some clarity on the purpose of the report. So it's just a report on the presidential letter. It calls for the SANDF. It says where the SANDF will be deployed. Eastern Cape, Free State, Gauteng, Northwest and Western Cape provinces under Operation Prosper, Illegal Mining and Gangsterism. It also states how many will be deployed, 2,200 members, the duration of the deployment, and then the expected cost of 823 million. There's a space then for the consideration of the report, and if there's any specific comments, I think it's important. It's an opportunity for the committee to make any specific comments. But I think just to conclude, the aim of the report is to report to the two houses whether an amendment, substitution, or termination of the deployment is required. Well, this committee can make a recommendation to the two houses. But if an amendment, substitution, or termination must be provided for, the houses must make those decisions. According to the Defence Act, the houses can terminate the substitute or amend a deployment. So the committee can make a recommendation to the houses, and then through the comment section, this does not preclude the committee from then continuing its interrogation of this. For example, through next week's meeting with the Portfolio Committee on Police. The committee can make further recommendations on this. This report is simply to comply with the legislation in terms of reporting back to the houses on the deployment and trying to do it within 7 days, which is the legislative prescript for this. Thank you, Chair. If there are any comments, we can include it also in the report.
Thank you, honourable members. Okay, let me start with Honourable Gotze.
Thank you, Chair, and thank you to Dr. Janse van Rensburg for the explanation. Chair, I note that there will be a joint committee meeting with police next week. I want to just put a few things on the record. The first thing is that during last Friday's meeting of this committee, the details that we asked for were made out to be, we were told that they couldn't give us any answer any of our questions because it was part of the operational plan, which we clarified later that that was not the case. So details to this committee that has an oversight function was very sketchy and has been in the past 3 meetings. However, on Sunday, the 15th of March, a joint press briefing was held between the SANDF and the police, giving full details of what is to be expected. Now, I am not sure, and certainly would like to ask then that this be included in the comment section, but I would like an explanation next week when we have this briefing as to what changed between 13 and 15 March that allowed the SANDF to give the media a full briefing, but that they were not able to give this committee that has oversight over the SANDF such an explanation. The second thing, Chairperson, is that I certainly hope that the Minister will be present in person next Friday, as well as the Minister of Police, seeing as it is the Acting Minister of Police. Of specific importance for this committee, Chairperson. And in terms of the letter, we will next Friday require very specific details about the employment numbers, so they will be accommodated. And of course, that will have to be juxtaposed with SAP's numbers and ratios, etc. And then of utmost importance, and Chairperson, again, these are only for comments because I think it is important that this deployment starts as soon as possible. We still don't know when. We were just told 2 weeks, but again, we have no dates. And in the meantime, people on the Cape Flats last week, there was 83 murders. So we need to get going. But I do have to mention, and it would be remiss of me to not mention, the fact that there is a price tag of 823.2 million rand. Now, I won't try and read that number that they have in here. It's a very specific amount. And the price tag of 823 million rand was already mentioned 2 weeks ago, before even there was a plan. So it is critically important that this committee, whether it be in the joint meeting next week or as a separate item afterwards, be provided with a breakdown of exactly how the SANDF has arrived at the amount of 823.2 plus million. Okay. And the reason for that is that the Department of Defense and Military Veterans is currently constitute 34% of all corruption investigations in the SIU and the DPCI to a total value of 2.1 to 2.5 billion rand. This committee must have full and proper oversight over the monies that will be made available. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Honorable Gosal. Thank you for those concerns. Honorable Harding, then we'll go to Honorable Lagis and then Honorable Noe. Honorable Harding?
Sure, in addition to that, and I think I must say it here, over the period, the past period, I've noticed, let me call it a reluctance to, for the generals that must provide us with information, to provide us with information. They provide the minimum, and even if we ask questions, they will postpone and give it as if they don't want to do it, they do not have the authority to give the information. And you will recall, Chair, this was very evident during the beginning of December. We asked specific questions on the MINUSCO rotation, and where we actually, and they knew that we were going to Bloemfontein, and that was kept away from us. And I don't know if they are under instruction not to provide us with questions, or there is something behind this. There's a silo developing, and they only give questions when they are actually forced to give it. I don't know where this rift between the Portfolio Committee and the Joint Standing Committee and the SANDF started to develop, but it's real. It's there. There's a wall. And I don't know how we're going to address it. Okay. That's something I had to say. Secondly, there are already concerns in the media about training, about readiness, and about joint training, MTR, already in the media out there. And those are questions that we specifically asked them for, and they sort of shrugged off. And some people perhaps use the words to get to the bottom of this, using the word operational, which then they use to say, but it's confidential. But we want to know that the SANDF that we are going to deploy have been properly trained and are properly equipped. Remembering that we sent troops into battle without tents and with not sufficient clothing and boots, and support, air support and medical support. remembering that. Now we answer the questions, and they don't want to divulge anything to this committee. But 2 days later, the chief SANDF goes on TV and tells the world that his generals was not prepared to share with us. It's a concern, Chair.
Thank you, Honorable. Honorable Plugis.
Chair, first I want to put this on record myself also. And I don't know where is it coming from the table or from us, that we confuse matters. We sat in one meeting discussing a SONA letter of the president's instruction. Last weekend, we were discussing SONA, whilst it was another letter and deployment letter that was on the table. That's why we confused ourselves. I've said it last week, we are confusing ourselves, colleague, by discussing everything that is not on the table. Last week we discussed the SONA issue. Here's the SONA letter now. Last week was the MONUSCO and the as Honorable Kotsal is now raising, the Prosper. What is raising now is the 810 million. Was that discussion that we were supposed to have last week. But now, because we were confused in the committee ourselves, what we are discussing, the generals got away out of our meeting and not explain the 810 million that they have used. Because we were discussing SONA and we were discussing Prosper. Prosper is a deployment on its own. This is a deployment on its own. And there's a resolution that we've taken last year on this deployment. We've said that let us be briefed on the preparations and the readiness as a joint committee between us and the police. That meeting is arranged for next week on the 27th. This letter is now asking and coming through the Committee for Compliance. We must agree on it and say, and I think what the colleagues are saying is right, some of the matters is still outstanding. We haven't got the readiness, and it's going to be happening next week. So I will let us know the letter, put the letter where it's supposed to be, and wait for the meeting of next week. And next week, don't confuse the 810 million. Because that is going to confuse us. The next week should be on the preparations, on the SONA declaration by the president, which is the letter that we are dealing with now. And that will help us, Chair.
Thank you, Honourable Member, for clarifying the matter. Honourable Members, I see our whip is about to leave because of a whip. Do you want to say something? Okay. Then I think, Estia, I see you are ready, you want to jump out. We can release you. I thought you wanted to say something, but if not, it's okay. Okay, honourable members, here is Honourable Nue.
Chair, although I'm not going to say much because Honourable Plakis has covered, but I want to emphasize this point. What is leading to our confusion is because, one, Chair, since last time when we started engaging with letters from the presidency informing this committee, everything comes late. We always informed late. And when we start to engage with that correspondence, we are caught between the rock and the hard place. You have got no time to engage on the planning of the deployment because it has already started. Now we are chasing for information on something that is already running. Two, as a committee, unfortunately, for whatever reason, planning and what, we never give ourselves chance to discuss matters to engage with departments before we engage. We come into a meeting, they are already here. On ourselves as a committee, we are not approaching such a meeting with common stand, what we are going to discuss with the department. It is the papers before us, information, and we make inputs based on what we read. And like as Honorable Godsell says, we want a detailed what breakdown of the money that is going to be spent. Now I'm asking myself, what is it that are we going to do with that? Are we going to follow up every cent? That's his view. I'm not against it. But is that a position of the committee? So we never have a position of the committee. We always have individuals, members of the committee. When I say what I say, I want to believe that it represents the committee. And then it sticks with you if it doesn't happen. And when you express your views or about the minister or about the general or about the defense force as it is, it's like we all as a committee in agreement with that. So it makes a misrepresentation. So I want to make a proposal that we must give ourselves to discuss what we want the department, from the department, and what we want them to do before we go and engage with them, so that we always are coherent in our engagement with the department. That's the manner we are approaching it. It will forever confuse us.
Yeah.
Thank you.
I think this is very important. Honorable Whip, I think this must be discussed in the Whip because of, I raised it in the chairman's meeting, and I think it must be raised in the what Honorable is saying is true, that we come here, we never discuss issues on the committee position. We always discuss issues based on our individual assessment. So I think it's a matter which really we must consider it and see how to bring it. So let's proceed with this, honourable members. Can we move for the consideration of this report as is presented with the amendment? Have you made some amendments there?
Yes, Chair, we just included specific requirements as mentioned by Honourable Gotzel and Mr. Hatting for next week to be included in next week's presentation as it relates to the breakdown of the spending, the areas of deployment.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, so can we move for the consideration of the report, members? Can we move for the? Can
Yes.
Are you moving? Okay, thank you very
I
much.
move, Chair.
Okay, thank you. Lucky?
Chair, I've even proposed it when I was giving my input, but it's fine, I will second it.
Okay, thank you. Okay, let's move to the next one, which is a consideration of the draft report on the Joint Standing Committee of the 2025 annual report. Do you want that? Huh? You're confident. Honourable members, I think we have gone through the report. Can we consider the draft report? Okay.
Second, Chair.
Okay, thank you very much.
I second, Chair.
Thank you very much, honourable members. The consideration of the draft West Coast Oversight Visit Report. I hope that we have all gone through the report as well.
Chair, I propose that we adopt the report.
We adopt the report. Honourable.
Chairperson, I will second. I just have a few spelling mistakes, but I said I will communicate that with Dr. Jans van der Rensburg, so I will second the adoption.
Thank you very much. Let's move the consideration of our standing minutes, point number 8.
I move, Chair, that we accept it.
Honourable Seconder.
Second, sir.
Thank you very much. Honourable members, I am going to hand over to the co-chair.
Chair, we have built up quite a history with the NCACC, specifically from them not responding. There's a resolution under point 11, NCACC committed to furnish the committee with a detailed list of countries with etc. We need to put in there a deadline to follow up on that, because if we don't do that, nothing will happen.
On which point?
That's point 11, Chair.
Point 11.
So within 30 days, or is that reasonable? It should be.
Okay.
And then they may just also have to inform them that it's 30 days, please.
Okay. Can you move for that? Can you move for that? On,
Excellent proposal. I will second that.
can you move for the proposal, members?
Yeah, I moved.
Thank you, Honourable Plagis. Honourable members, thank you very much. Members, I think we have had a wonderful meeting with the council. We understood what the real way the council want to go, and this is yeah. And next week, honourable members, I think it will be our last fiscal meeting. Yeah, my apology together with the co-chairperson for having that every Friday keeping you here while yeah, well, quite sorry, but I think there are some positive results of what we have been doing, and I must congratulate you. And yeah, and yeah, and we thank everybody. We thank our support staff, and the meeting stands adjourned. Thank you very much. Thank you.